Worded. So welcome to Closing the Confidence Gap to Accelerate Action. I am hosting this webinar. If we haven't met yet, I'm Kelli Thompson. I'm the author of Closing the Confidence Gap. I'm also an executive coach and a speaker, and I love to run training programs just like this. In fact, I spent over almost 20 years in corporate America, either as a corporate trainer, leading training programs, or overseeing human resources. And so I love talking about this sort of stuff. So let's get started. We are here because the theme this week is accelerating action. This year is accelerating action. And I could read to you the language from the International Women's Day website. But what I think is really important, though, is to know that I want to talk about accelerating action in a different way. I want to talk about accelerating action, not by having you leave with, a whole list of all of the things that you have to do to get into action and do all these things. In fact, I want to talk about it a little bit different. I want to hopefully leave you with some tools today that will perhaps show you that maybe to get into action, you need to be doing less. And you need to be trying to copy others less. And you need to be kind of following the script less. And so hopefully when you leave today, maybe it's with a little bit less stress that you don't have to do as much as you thought, and you can have more confidence in showing up as yourself. So that is my first question for you all. And let's use the anonymous polling solution to answer this question. What would you do if you had a little more confidence? Go ahead and just scan the QR code, or you can join us at slido.com and type in the numbers. And I would love to hear it. This will not show your phone number, and this will not show your name. So I would love to hear from you. What would you do if you had a little more confidence? When I was writing the book, Closing the Confidence Gap, I actually asked over 500 women this question: what would you do with a little more confidence? And since that time, I have asked all genders, thousands of people at all genders, this question. And what I always hear is many things which you were all saying. I would start my own business. I would ask for a raise. I would speak up more. I would take on more opportunities. Probably the funniest answer I ever got was, I would tell my husband about my private Amazon account. And I was like, oh, I want to know where you're hiding all the packages. This is amazing. Yeah, I'd stand up straighter. I'd take bigger risks. I'd become an entrepreneur. I'd speak up more. I hear women say I would run for office. I mean, there is just so many things that we could do if we would just take action on this thing that said, hey, what would I do if I had a little more confidence? I mean, you were already putting all of these things in here about speaking up, starting my side business, applying for jobs, having more ideas, take up a bigger role. Imagine the ripple effect of all of us just doing this thing that we said we would do if we had a little more confidence. So as we work throughout today and we talk about closing the confidence gap, I want you to think about this thing you said you would do if you had a little more confidence, and what it would look like if you got into action or if others got into action as well. In fact, there's something that oftentimes holds us back. And, when I was writing the book, Closing the Confidence Gap, I actually didn't realize that Wharton had published a study called The Confidence Gap. I'm like, well, that's convenient. And what they wanted to understand was something that I was noticing, and that there just seems to be a gap between how women tend to take action and how men tend to take action. Why does it just seem to be easier for the guys? So what they did was Wharton gave folks a standardized test. And they did not tell the folks how they did on the test, but based on how folks thought they did on the test, they were supposed to go and advocate to these hypothetical employers about their perceived test performance, and then advocate for these hypothetical jobs. So let me ask you, let's go back to the regular chat, the webinar chat. Who do you think did a better job advocating for themselves, the men or the women? Tell me in the chat. The men. The men. Yep. Yep. The men did. Y'all are so smart. The men did. Who do you think did a little better on the test, the men or the women? Yep, the women. Absolutely, the women did a little bit better. And so what Wharton said was, well, maybe if we just start telling women that they did better on the test, then their confidence will follow suit. It's kind of like that old adage. It's like, well, maybe if we just tell them better, then their confidence will follow their competence. And so when I wrote Closing the Confidence Gap, I actually said, yeah, that's not going to cut it. Because for women to show up in their full confidence, they need to see people like themselves in the rooms where decisions are made. It's not easy for us just to tell women to be more confident. It's important for us to see people like ourselves in the rooms where decisions are made, that are modeling healthy self-advocacy, that are modeling confidence, that are modeling the many ways that you can show up and be a leader. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. So there's good news. There is more women than ever in leadership today, but there's still a gap in the top rooms where decisions are made. Now let's talk about the progress. Progress has been made over the last few years. The McKinsey and LeanIn Women in the Workplace report has shown that we have grown from about 25% to 29% of C-suite leaders are now women. However, one of the items that is really concerning to me, and something I'm talking about with a lot of executives, is the pipeline. So this number, for every 100 men that are promoted, 81 women are promoted. And that number dropped, y'all. Last year, it was for every 100 men that were promoted, 87 women are promoted. And this lack of talent in the pipeline is costly. It's costly to organizations. It's costly for leaders who need to cultivate and develop strong talent pipelines so that they can achieve their strategic objectives. But it also leaves, women out of the conversation as well. And the gap is expensive for women too. I spent so much time in human resources as a recruiter, a generalist, somebody who oversaw HR, and I noticed a really sad trend. And I know this statistic has been published. This is not the first time you're seeing it, but I just wanted to add a personal anecdote that I saw this with my own eyes. As an HR person, I would post a job on the posting board, and there would be two types of responses. Men would often either call me or email me and be like, oh my gosh, this job looks awesome. Who do I have to talk to? And women would call me or maybe come to my office and be like, oh, they finally posted that VP role, but I looked at the job requirements and I don't know. I only meet 9 of the 10 qualifications. And you're shaking them. You're like, oh my gosh, just apply. And I saw this all of the time. And I want to ask you, tell me in the chat, how many of you, just give me a yes or no, have ever hired someone that didn't meet all of the qualifications? Or you applied for a job and you didn't have all the qualifications and you were still hired? Tell me in the chat if that has ever sounded or been like you. Yes, yes. Y'all, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Okay. I used to write job descriptions for a living. I used to write these job postings for a living. And this list of qualifications is like a wish list. It's a dream list. It's things we hope the person would have. But all the time we hired people who were amazing, superstars, high talent, who maybe met 3 or 4 qualifications. Now, I'm not talking about healthcare where we have to have certain things, right, to take care of patients. I'm talking about typical office professional roles. So the thing I want to leave you all with today, and the thing that I tell all of my clients, is do not self-reject. Because what happens is if you're waiting until you feel or you meet 100% of the qualifications, you're probably already overqualified for that job and you're going to be bored in 6 months. Okay. So men are applying when they meet 60%. You know what that means, y'all? Is men then are getting, because they're willing to take that risk, they are earning higher titles and jobs with more pay, while women are systemically underestimating themselves and keeping themselves out of those senior most positions. And this is important, because the research continues to show over and over again that organizations experience a 50% increase in company profits when women and all diversities are represented at the top. So today, closing the confidence gap to accelerate action, we are going to do this by boosting your peace, by boosting your potential, and boosting your paycheck. But again, I hope that I'm giving you things that actually kind of remove some things in the way versus giving you a long list of things that you need to do. That's not my MO. So let's talk about how do we boost our peace. So here's the thing, okay? There are so many folks out there that are like, we need to stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. Okay, I get that. I get that so many causes of imposter syndrome are systemic. And that's what I was saying earlier. If we want to see women showing up in their full confidence, we need to have more women in the rooms where decisions are made. However, let me ask you this. Tell me in the chat, how many of you have felt the real feelings of doubt and imposter feelings? Give me a yes or no in the chat. Yeah, they're real. I can't tell women to stop feeling imposter syndrome because it would overlook the very real feelings that we all feel. And so one of the things I actually want to call to your attention, and I think that makes me a little bit different from a lot of the confidence speakers out there that you might see, is I'm not going to sit here today and tell you, here's 3 easy ways to feel more confident, or like leave you with an impression that you're never going to feel doubt again. In fact, one of the things I always say when folks leave my seminars, I hope you feel doubt. You know why? Because that means you're stretching your comfort zone. If you leave this today and you never feel doubt again, it probably means you were underplaying. You are not stepping into your full capability. You are not taking risks. I want you to feel doubt. You know why? Because I'm going to give you some tools to help you thrive while also feeling doubt. So let's talk about this, because I don't know, but like 5-10 years ago, I didn't even know the term imposter syndrome. And now that I feel like this term is rising, I feel like we could be labeling our everyday healthy doubt as imposter feelings. So what I want you to remember is that doubt is a normal, healthy human emotion. And doubt is going to be present every time we stretch our comfort zone. Y'all, we have to be careful. So many of my clients say, I don't want to feel doubt. And I'm like, but really? Because there are people in this world who don't feel doubt, and they're called sociopaths. And my husband and I watch them every Friday night on Dateline with a margarita. Although lately, because we're getting old, it's usually the first hour on Friday night and the second hour on Saturday night, because we go to bed at like 9 o'clock. So remember, like, doubt is a normal, healthy human emotion. It keeps us humble. It keeps us curious. Tell me in the chat, how many of you have ever worked for a leader who could have benefited from a little more doubt? I bet it wasn't that fun, because they never questioned themselves. Okay. So remember, doubt precedes some of our biggest moments. It keeps us connected, keeps us just checking the data one more time. Whereas imposter syndrome, I could kind of describe as when, doubt becomes so prevalent that we continue to underapply, we continue to underestimate ourselves, we continue to not speak up. It becomes self-sabotage. But actually, the imposter phenomenon was a term that was coined in 1978 by Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. And they wanted to understand why these high-achieving women felt like they were going to be found out, or all of their success was a result of luck, or they didn't belong in the rooms that they were in, which is the definition of imposter feelings, imposter syndrome. I call it imposter feelings because syndrome makes it sound like there's something wrong with us, and there's not. But what we have to remember, y'all, is in 1978, when this study was done, women had just gotten the ability to have credit in their own name 4 years earlier. Women couldn't even go to the bank until 1974 and like take out a loan or get a credit card without a male cosign. So it's going to be really important. You're going to want to make sure you remember this little stat for later. And another little fun fact you might remember for later is that, in fact, women couldn't even get a business loan in their own name until 1988. So something to think about when you think about when this was we were having the conversation. So what I want us to remember, though, is like imposter feelings, imposter syndrome. More research has been done. I always joke that not 70% of people feel imposter syndrome. 70% of people admit to feeling imposter syndrome. And they're more likely to report these feelings when they expect to be stereotyped based on their gender, when people have experienced racial bias or discrimination, or they are working in an environment where brilliance is prized above all else. Lots of times that happens in academia. It is both individual and systemic. So we have to fix the systems, but we can't fix the systems overnight. So how do we support the women? How do we support ourselves? How do we get the tools to move forward while we are also advocating for changes in the system? That's the problem that I work to solve in closing the confidence gap, and what I want to talk about here today. So let's just talk about this. Tell me in the chat, what triggers your moments of doubt and imposter feelings? What do you feel like your biggest triggers are? Is it when you have to speak up? Is it when you're going to go and apply for a new job? Is it when maybe you're sitting in front of a room and giving a presentation that you've never given before? I'd be curious. Waking up. I love this. When I do something that isn't perfect, asking for more money, public speaking all the time. I'm just so normalizing that, Cindy. I hear that all the time, because a lot of my clients that I work with, even in corporate, what they're finding is that they have to present to the board, or their company wants them to present at a conference, or they have to present at the town hall. And all of a sudden, now that they're getting to these VP levels, they're like, I have to public speak. And so a lot of our coaching is spent on getting comfortable with like public speaking and pulling together a message in front of a large group. So I'm just honoring this is a thing. When I share an idea in a room full of higher ups, yes, we put them on a pedestal. Speaking and having someone repeat what I said and get the acknowledgement. When my knowledge is challenged, I don't know something, pitching to a room full of older men. Oh, amen to that, Shelby. Absolutely. So many things can cause our doubt or imposter feelings to rise up. Promotions. You get promoted and it's your first day. Maybe you're managing your former peers and you're like, oh my gosh, are they going to find out that they made the biggest mistake? Could be when you're starting a new career. I know that's when I felt my most is when I went to a new company. I'm like, what if I can't hack it here? And all my success at the last company was just luck. And now I'm really going to be found out, right? It could be big presentations. It could be group settings or even just like you get assigned a major high profile project. It's really huge. And so one of the things I want us to remember is that remember the goals that we set today, when we want the promotion, when we want to speak up, or we're like, I finally get to speak in front of the entire company. Today's exciting goals, they kind of like awaken tomorrow's imposter monster. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. So like, I remember when I wrote this book, I was so excited and oh my gosh, I'm going to write it. And then its publishing date came. It's like my little imposter monster like sat on my shoulder and was like, are you sure? Are you sure about that? Are you going to be found out that this book is terrible and everybody hates it? And you're all going to be exposed. And so I just want you to know how common it is because one of the things that you can do, one of the strategies I teach my clients is when you are setting goals, actually make a proactive plan for how you are going to deal with the nerves and the doubt and the imposter feelings when that moment arises. Plan for it. The coaching question I love to ask my clients is this: what discomfort will you plan for and accommodate as you pursue this goal? Because then when it comes, it's like, oh, there it is. I planned for this. I knew this versus when it comes to you as a surprise. Let's just talk about what imposter syndrome like or doubt feels like. Tell me in the chat, which one of these do you feel? Is it like stomach issues? Is it anxiety? Is it restlessness? Is it procrastination? I'm a procrastinator. When I have imposter feelings, I'm now writing my second book and I have a lot of imposter feelings. And so I procrastinate. I'm like, I sit down to write and I'm like, oh, the dishwasher needs to be unloaded. Oh, I got to change my laundry, right? Like it's anything to just delay this thing. My heart races, my body aches. Absolutely. All of this is so common. And what I tell my clients is oftentimes we can notice what's happening in our bodies before we can like our minds catch up and actually know what's going on. And so here's the thing. Here's some strategies I want to teach you all, because again, I told you, I want you to walk out of this and feel doubt because that means you're going to go do something. So what happens when you start to feel these feelings? First things first, I just want you to notice it. Just noticing. I want you just to start to notice what's happening in your body. I want you just to notice all of the things that are going through your head, like, oh, I'm going to be found out. Oh my gosh, what if this is, the time when they realize they made a huge mistake? Just notice it with a ton of compassion, a ton of compassion. And then I just want you to name it. Like this feels like doubt. This feels like nerves. This feels like overwhelm. Feels like, panic. So notice and name it. In fact, we're going to stop here because I want us to do our little poll again. So scan the code and I want you to tell me when you are about to do a big thing, maybe you're going to do that big thing that you said that you would do if you had a little more confidence. You're going to ask for the raise, whatever it is. What emotions come up for you? I'm going to give you a secret. I am teaching you one of my number one most common tools to help my clients feel more confident. And you're like, what? Naming your emotions? Yes. Naming your emotions. My clients affectionately call this the emotional cheese wheel. Because when we can slow down and we can actually name our emotions, remember, imposter syndrome is like an umbrella emotion. Because underneath that umbrella emotion, we feel dread, panic, self-doubt, nerves, anxiety, worry, agitation, nervousness, stress, fear, guilt, right? Do you notice that it's actually all of these other things? And so when we can slow down and when we can actually name our emotions, it does not give those emotions power. Because all emotions are, y'all, and we overlook this in corporate all the time, is emotions are just data that show us what we really care about. They just show us that we care, what we really care about. And when we can name those emotions, it actually gets all of that chaos out and it actually brings us more clarity. Okay. And let me show you how this works. So we notice it, we name it, and we normalize it. Of course, I'm feeling doubt because I care about this presentation. Of course, I'm feeling nerves because this promotion is really important to me. Of course, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I want to make sure I get all of their questions answered. Do you notice how much kinder that is? And when we can slow down and even just put our hands over our hearts, it just helps us just slow the process down. And then we can reframe it. Feeling doubt means that I care that I deliver a good presentation. Like before my TED Talk, I had the most crippling doubt and nerves that I've had in years. And I kept telling myself, I'm like, because I feel this way, because I'm feeling overwhelming anxiety, it means I care about my audience. It means I care about giving a good talk. Because maybe you are feeling guilty or nervous about delivering some bad news to one of your direct reports. Of course you do. It means you care about them. Okay, if you didn't feel that way, we wouldn't care. So we can reframe it and then we can act on it, taking action on it. Because here's the thing, y'all. You cannot criticize yourself into more confidence. Although we try, right? We have to give a big presentation and we're going to do that thing we said we do if we had a little more confidence. And then we start feeling all the feelings. And what do? At least what I do is I'm like, stop feeling this way. What are you doing? What's wrong with you, Kelly? Why can't you get your shit together? Does it ever make you feel better? No, it does not. The criticism makes your spiral go downward. You cannot criticize yourself into more confidence. And that's why naming your emotions is my number one tool to building more confidence because it forces us to have compassion in the moment, having compassion for ourselves. And when we can, it's much easier to move forward when we're feeling compassionate for ourselves and how we're feeling in these normal moments than criticizing ourselves in those moments. Because here's the thing. It's not that great leaders always feel confident, y'all. Instead, they've learned to lead while also feeling doubt. In fact, I've interviewed some very well-known leaders, Ariana Huffington, Indra Nooyi, who is the former CEO of Pepsi. And I specifically asked Indra, I said, Indra, they moved you all over the place at Pepsi and you were taking on jobs that you'd never done before. I'm like, weren't you like feeling doubt all the time? She's like, oh yeah, all the time. She's like, but you just learned to lead with it. Ariana Huffington said the same thing. I have not gotten a chance to talk to Barbara Corcoran yet, but she's also on the record as saying the same things. Great leaders, it's not that they never feel doubt. They just learn how to take action and lead while also feeling doubt. So we've talked about boosting your peace, and we boost our peace because we cannot criticize ourselves into more confidence. We slow down. We have a ton of compassion. We name our emotions and say, you know what? Doubt just means I care about doing good work. I can move forward and give a good presentation while also feeling doubt. I felt nervous before I turned on my camera today. It's just normal. All right, let's talk about how we boost our potential. So if you've already read my book, you may know about this story, but this is a bus that sits on our family farm and ranch out in Western Nebraska. And every time I go out there, I always think of my great grandma. And, this is a big deal because my grandma bought this bus in the 1960s so that she could pick up and transport her farm workers. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, that's like, what's the big deal? Like, it's just a bus. But if you remember this stat from before, women could not get a loan in their own name until 1974. And here's the problem. My great grandma was a widow. Her husband died when she was 60. And so she ran that farm on her own for 15 years. And so when he died, she did not have a male cosign. And so she had to buy this bus with cash, y'all. And she had to buy farm equipment with cash. She had to buy tractors and combines with cash. And it's a good thing that she was good with money. She actually had her first job when she was 15 when she worked at the hardware store. So she learned like the cost of goods of things. And she was shrewd. So she primarily raised my dad when my dad was little, and my dad would tag along to all of these little visits where she would go into parts stores, farm supply stores. And my grandma was short in stature. She was 4'11", but she was really big in personality. My dad said that when great grandma used to walk into the stores, like the people just immediately got the manager. Like they just knew that her name was Elizabeth. They knew that Elizabeth was there to like negotiate to the bottom dollar. And so tell me in the chat, what do you think they called Elizabeth back in 1965? with her shrewd ability to negotiate to the bottom dollar. And you know what she would do is my dad said she would ask for what she wanted for a price and she would stand there silently until she got it. Difficult, trouble. Yes, demanding. What else? Challenging. The B word. Yes, you would be right. My dad said it, she was ultimately very well respected, but she was also called a lot of things. And I think that this story is really important because here's the thing. Because my grandma was called those things, because she was called difficult, pushy, rude, a witch, she was able to run this 1,000-acre farm and ranch on cash. She was able to grow all these crops that got shipped out for people to eat for food. She was actually able, as a widow, to leave a legacy and actually like have a retirement plan for herself. And then when she passed away, be able to, give money away to her children, to her daughters. So because she was these things, she was so successful. And I'm sure that we have all been called a thing. And that's what I want to know. What have you always been called? Because my hunch is if you're anything like me, you haven't always been called, you know, all the nice things. I've always been called too direct. So tell me, we'll go back to the live poll here. It can be anonymous. What have you always been called? Mean, aggressive, bossy, difficult, dramatic, I'm going the other, controlling, persistent, nurturing, all of these things, right? And this is so hard because, when we are called these things, at least in my experience, I was always called too direct. Kelli, like, you are too blunt, you are too direct. And so I remember in corporate, and you know what, there was a time where I would, when I was younger, that I would over rotate on the bluntness. Okay. So let's just be clear. But there were times in corporate where I needed to be direct, but I sat there self-censoring myself, not saying anything because I was so obsessed with like not coming across as too direct that I just sat there in silence and I didn't say anything and the meeting would pass me by. How many of y'all have ever done this? Because you are so busy self-censoring, you just sit there and you don't say anything and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to blah, 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 blah. Tell me in the chat. Has this ever happened to you all? Because I know it's happened to me. I know it's happened to my clients and it is exhausting. And so I want to give you all something different to think about today when it comes to using our unique approach. Because there is so much conversation out there about executive presence. And lots of times when an organization hires me to coach one of their leaders, they're like, oh, they need to work on their executive presence. Or somebody will come to me and say, I need to work on my executive presence. I'm like, I don't even know what that means because executive presence, I believe, is something that was created by men for men when men ran the workplace. And now all of a sudden we have a lot more diversity in this workplace. And there seems to be this little box that we can't really name of what executive presence looks like. In fact, when somebody says, well, I need them to improve their executive presence, I'm like, well, what behaviors does that mean? Like, what behaviors is this person demonstrating? Well, she interrupts a lot in meetings. Great. We can work with that. Let's work on her no longer interrupting in meetings. That's something I can work with. So we don't need to fix women. We actually need more women in leadership. Why? Because when women lead, they get better feedback than men do. 89% of the time, they score higher on leadership assessments. And there was this really awesome study done by the Journal of Sciences that analyzed organizations that had women leaders at the top. And they analyzed all the documents and emails from this organization. 1.23 billion words they analyzed. And they found that stereotypes of women changed. The way they talked about women changed when there was more women in leadership. They no longer said, oh, because she's warm, she's incompetent, or because she's direct or assertive, then, she's not fit for leadership. So that's why it's so important that we don't need to fix women. We need more women in leadership. In fact, I want to change. This is something I'm actually going to be talking about. I talk about it a little bit in this book, but I'll be talking about a lot in my next book, is instead of talking about executive presence, instead, how do we be situationally savvy? Because here's the thing, y'all, this thing that you've always been called is probably your superpower. So I want you to put this in the chat. Because you are whatever they called you, you are able to do what? I'll give you an example. Because I am direct, I can be a good coach because sometimes I can give feedback to folks that other people won't tell them, but is essential for their career development. As an HR person, Because I was direct, I was able to communicate really hard organizational changes and just say the thing without sugarcoating it. So tell us in the chat, what is it that you've always been called? Because you are this thing, what are you able to do? Because I'm bossy, I know how to like push things into action. Because I am more emotional, I'm able to get in touch with people. Yes. Because I am direct, I'm able to bring the attention to the critical issues quickly so they can be solved faster. Absolutely. Because I'm bossy, I'm able to give feedback. Because I'm compassionate, I can create belonging. Yes, yes, yes. Because I'm nosy, I'm able to give the answer my team needs to thrive. Do you see how much better this feels? Does this feel better? Because we are these things, we're able to do great things. And so here's the thing though, like all the things that we've cultivated to kind of balance this out aren't lost either. So because I was so direct, I was always working on my politeness. Like I need to be more palatable. I need to be more polite. Well, I've learned like I can be direct and my values are love, respect, family, creativity, and learning. I can be direct and respectful. I can be direct and loving. I can be direct and polite. And so maybe give yours a go in the chat. What can you be? Can you be bossy and empathetic? Can you be direct and empathetic? Can you be emotional and a word I'm looking for is like, can you be emotional and assertive? So think about it. You can be what and what. This is really important to think about. How am I balancing that unique trait that I've always been said I should tone down, but I don't want to forget all the qualities that I've built, right, to come up with that and balance that out either. I can be both things. And this is really important when we think about actually how to use situational savvy. I can be direct and empathetic. So I want to show you probably something you've never seen before. I call this my situational savvy matrix, and I work with it with my one-on-one clients all of the time. Because all the time they're told me, I'm too assertive, I'm too bossy, I'm too this. Okay, well, that could be true, but we talk about because you are bossy, what does that allow you to do? And I often ask them, well, what is that trait that you've been working to kind of counteract the bossiness? Because you know what, that matters too. You know, I was way too blunt at one point, and I needed to really focus on my politeness to kind of take the edge off. So I'll give you an example. There are situations that call for everything. And that's why this is so different from executive presence, is because it makes us smarter. It makes us more savvy about who we need to be in the moment to get the results that we want as a leader. So I'll just use my example. So you know what? This is my level of directness. When can I be very direct and not worry so much about politeness or palatability? Well, you know what? When there's injustices, discrimination, or I see unethical things happen, I can be very direct and I don't have to go through all my politeness mechanisms. Maybe my level of directness is low and my need for palatability is low when I'm just hanging out with my family and I can just, you know, shoot whatever I want. Maybe my need for politeness or palatability needs to be very high and my level of directness very low when I'm in new places or I'm meeting new people. And I just haven't felt them out yet for, you know, how they handle things. How I wrote the book, though, I wrote the book from a high level of directness and a high level of palatability. It's why Kirkus Reviews calls it a forcefully and compelling written guide, because I wanted to be direct, but I also wanted to be palatable. So I would encourage you, if you need to take a screenshot of this slide, absolutely. How can you plot your situations so that you can show up and use these unique things about you in the situation that calls for them most so that you can make impact in the rooms where decisions are made? Because at the end of the day, when you spend your energy trying to show up like someone else, you are going to lose the power that makes you you. So let's talk about how do we boost our paycheck. All right, tell me in the chat, how many of you have ever uttered this? You're on mute. I think Zoom said in some study that like 72% of people have said like you're on mute, especially during the pandemic. And, you know, this is funny because I was actually on International Women's Day webinar with a company before this, and the gal who kicked it off was on mute. So everybody's like, you're on mute. But I think this actually turns into a helpful self-coaching question. Am I on mute? You might be on mute in your life if you frequently have an idea or a suggestion, but you stay silent because you're nervous about how people will react. You might be on mute if you need to set a boundary or an expectation, but you stay silent because you don't want the conflict. Maybe you want to start leading more authentically, but you don't because you don't want people to perceive you as bossy or emotional or too direct. Maybe you're overwhelmed by demands at work, but you stay silent because you don't want to be seen as a complainer. Or maybe you want to contribute more, but you feel you must self-censor because you are an only on the team, the only woman, only person of color, the only female engineer, whatever it might be. So tell me in the chat, was anybody able to check a box here? Was this a good assessment that perhaps maybe you might be on mute? We've got a few folks, several boxes. Yeah. So I want you to start thinking about that. And I want you to start thinking about how you're being on mute, you're holding back, is holding not only yourself back, but actually holding your organization back from all the good ideas and input and feedback that you need to give. Because as I said in the beginning, at the end of the day, organizations are more successful with diverse voices at the top. And a really interesting study out of the University of Maryland and the University of Singapore found that women are positively affected and they gain more confidence when they saw women leaders speak up, especially their direct manager. So if you lead women, women are watching you. Tell me in the chat, how many of you have ever spoken up or taken a courageous action because you watched someone else go first? I have. Legit, the only reason my book exists in the world is because I watched another woman author go first. The only reason I'm an entrepreneur is because I watched another female entrepreneur that I worked for go first. And when I watched her show up and do these things, not by copying anybody else, but in her own unique way, I was like, oh, I can do this. I can say this. Absolutely. Because all too often we remain silent, but when you speak up, you actually inspire other people to do the same. And here's another one of my little 4 boxes. If you haven't figured it out, I do enjoy these because this is where I see a lot of people trapped. They are trapped either as the forgotten worker. Maybe their work is low visibility, but it's not bringing a lot of value to their organization. But where I see women trapped a lot is hidden gem. Their work is high value. Many times they are given some of the best projects at work, but they are so busy supporting everyone else, advocating for everyone else, making sure everyone else gets their due, that they're a hidden gem. And they get overlooked all of the time for promotions, for pay. Tell me, how many of y'all feel like maybe you're a hidden gem? And I get it. They don't want to be the office politician. The office politician is that person that is all visibility and no value. Okay. I think you probably know what I'm talking about, right? All visibility, no value. They don't want to be that. You know, it takes a lot to be that, though, to be able to get out there and be, advocating with not a lot of value. My hunch is a lot of you are stuck as a hidden gem. And so I want to give you a quick tool so that you can maybe get yourself in that top right box and be a trusted impact maker. How are you delivering value, but making sure that you are recognized and visible in a way that aligns with your values? And I don't know your first name, but this Kay Bentel, yes, I trained and had many people come through my department and move up above me in my company. It's so frustrating. So I want to teach you just a few things that organizations care about when you think about advocating for your value. Companies care about 3 things, y'all. They care about money, they care about risk, and they care about change and innovation. So I want you to start thinking about linking your work to what companies care about. Because I took on and launched this project, I helped the organization last quarter make $20 million. Wouldn't that be great? Right? Because I did this project, the organization saved $5,000. Some of you are like, okay, well, I'm not in a revenue generating role, but I bet I know a few of you on this webinar personally, and you are directly saying, well, I actually implemented this system and we reduced our risk to our customers by X%. Maybe you work in marketing and you did something to help protect the company and reduce its reputational risk. Maybe you're in a role that fosters a lot of change and innovation. Here's my specific steps on how I led change and innovation. And thank you, Joy, for the comment about the webinar. So how do we do this? So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the things that you do and how did it help the company make money, save money, reduce risk, or lead change, so you can link your value and really move towards that trusted impact maker. I want to give you my clarity effect model. The clarity effect model is when you actually communicate and deliver a message and the receiver receives that message the way that you intended. It's very simple. You can use this model, everything from having a conversation with your leader, giving feedback. I use this model to design my presentation. So if you have to go speak to the board, whenever I'm working with my clients, we're like, all right, let's get out the model. You got to go speak to the board. First question you have to ask yourself, be a trusted impact maker and deliver a clear message, is what is the transformation I want my audience to make? Okay, now don't let this question scare you. This is basically, I want my audience to go from uninformed about my project to supporters of my project. I want this employee to go from unaware that they have a performance issue to aware that they need to stop interrupting people in meetings. Do you see how simple that is? So I want you to think about something that you need to communicate. I need to make my manager unaware of the financial impact this project has made, to aware of the financial impact this project has made. Okay, so that's where we start. What transformation? And then the simple, what are 3 things they need to know to make this transformation? They need to know what I did in the project, the revenue that was generated by the project, and because we generated this project revenue, here's the impacts that that revenue is going to make. When I do this to create training, I'm like, okay, well, what transformation do I want the folks on International Women's Day to make? Well, I want them to go maybe from thinking certain things about confidence and they're going to have to leave thinking they got to hustle and all this junk, to helping them realize, actually, it's more about being myself and less about doing all the things and removing what's in the way. Okay, we're going to talk about 3 things then. We're going to talk about doubt. We're going to talk about showing up and using your unique style. And we're going to talk about delivering a clear message, which is what we're doing right now. And then how do I want folks to feel? Well, if you're in this webinar today, I want you to feel excited. I want you to feel empowered, but I want it to feel practical. Like, oh, I'm going to get like a practical thing I can go use in an hour. And if you're giving feedback, what are 3 words that describe I want the person to feel? If I'm going to be managing up to my leader and communicating my value and the revenue that I brought or the risk that I reduced, how do I want my manager to feel when I'm delivering this message? This can kind of help you guide your approach. And when you're worried about how other people feel, you worry less about your own doubt and imposter feelings. And the final thing is, what clear ask am I making of this person? Okay. I will tell you today that my clear ask of you, number 1, I'm going to give away a couple of books because I was bummed I had to reschedule this. My clear ask for you is that I'm going to be asking you to take a small, brave step and do something while also feeling doubt. And my final ask of you is, if you want to stay on for this part, you can. If you want to drop off for this part, you can. But I'm going to be talking about a women's leadership program that I run every single year come April. If you want to stay and listen to it, I'll ask you to stay. If you're like, nah, I'm good, then we're cool. Then you'll go and you'll do your next thing. So I want you to start, if you need to take a picture of this model, you can take it and use it and think about, how can I deliver a compelling message that encourages people to take action? Because at the end of the day, success loves clarity, y'all. I think sometimes we think that like we have to hustle and like work really hard, but really what I work with my clients and in my own experience is that the more clear we can be about what we're doing and what we need, then people can actually respond to you. You're actually teaching people how to use you because you're clear about what you're doing and what you're asking for. All right, let's talk about how to boost our paycheck by accelerating action. So this is my daughter. This is Haley. She is now almost 20, but in this picture, she was about 4 years old. And about age 4, she developed a condition that many 4-year-olds get. It's called the butt first. I don't know, you can tell me in the chat if you know exactly what I'm talking about, but it sounded like this. Every time I asked her to do something she didn't want to do, like clean her room, she'd be like, oh, Mom, but first, I got to go put on socks. Oh, Mom, but first, I need a slice of cheese. Like, oh, Mom, but first, I got to brush my doll's hair. I mean, just silly 4-year-old excuses. It would escalate near bedtime where I'd be like, okay, Haley, it's time to go to bed. Oh, Mom, but first, I need to clean my room, which was all of a sudden a priority. And, you know, the thing is that when I went through this phase with her, I realized we never really grow out of the butt firsts, do we? They just get more sophisticated. Those butt firsts just show up as the doubt we talked about. The butt first show up as the imposter feelings that we talked about. It's the, I want to apply for this job. Oh, but first, I want to speak up and talk in this meeting. Oh, but first I need to make sure I won't sound so direct. But first, but first, but first. I say that but first are the 2 most expensive words in our language. And to close the confidence gap and accelerate action, I encourage you and I encourage all my clients to exchange the but first for 2 more valuable words, and that is while also. Just doing what Indra Nooyi taught us. I can give an excellent presentation while also feeling like an imposter. I can go for this project or promotion while also feeling unqualified. I can share my ideas while also feeling nervous about what people will think. And I can have this courageous conversation while also feeling uncomfortable. Because so many people say, "Oh gosh, Kelli, I don't know. I just need to wait until I feel confident." But the thing is if you wait until you feel confident, you will be waiting forever because the actions of confidence come first and the feelings of confidence come second. Because confidence is actually a side effect of taking action. So we close the confidence gap and we actually accelerate action. We can exchange our but first to while alsos. And when we can shorten our steps, I love this graphic when we think about accelerating action, because I think all too often when we think about what's this thing we said we would do if we had a little more confidence, somebody you would say, apply for the role. Well, apply for the role can be this big of a step. So if that's feeling really nerve-wracking for you, I actually want you to break applying for the role in much smaller steps. It might be get out my resume, update my resume, type my cover letter, open the job board, post the job board, right? I want you to start thinking about how do I break this down into smaller steps? Because I think sometimes social media is tricky. We think that people accomplish things by taking these big, huge leaps, but they don't. It's just a result of many small steps. So today, as we accelerate action, I really encourage you to take your smallest, bravest next step. And maybe if you want to share it in the chat for some accountability and some visibility, please, I would love to hear it in the chat. What is your smallest, bravest next step that feels meaningful for you? And, it's interesting. Lots of times, like our smallest, bravest next steps look really unimpressive on paper. When I realized that after 12 years, I was ready to leave my organization, I was like, oh God, it was one of those things where I was like, one day I was like, oh God, I gotta go. I gotta leave. Well, I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do? I'm like, all right, I gotta download a resume template from Word, or maybe I needed to draft an email, not one that I would even send yet, but just draft it, just, to send out to my network to let them know I was looking at different opportunities. So apply for the job, taking on more work outside my small division, telling my boss I want that promotion. Yes, absolutely. I want you to think about what is your smallest, bravest next step. Make the phone call, send the message. And if that feels too big, type the message, put it in your drafts. Because at the end of the day, y'all, somebody is counting on your unique calling. Like organizations literally need you. They need your talents. They need your unique approach. They need your brand of expertise. And your hiding is serving no one. Like somebody's literally counting on you to show up and do this thing and use the approach that you've been gifted with. So please do not let the rest of us down. So let me ask you, before we close out today, if you enjoyed this webinar today, and thank you for, I think it was Joy said this webinar was fire. If I did these again, what topics would you like to hear? If you could scan it, use the scan code and tell me, that would be amazing. I'm going to get some. And then after you tell me, I'm going to give away 2 books today. So don't leave yet and give away some prizes. But I want to hear, if we did this again, what topics would you like to hear about? Do you want to hear about like shifting from doer to leader, how to actually ask for the raise, interview prep? Ooh, that's good. Y'all always help me think about things that I was actually never actually thinking about dealing with. Okay, ooh, be specific. Like male coworkers, but what are they doing? And female bosses, what are they doing? Because that's really general. These are good answers, and I want you to be specific. Like, yeah, what are these people actually doing? Yeah, so you can do asking for a setting good examples, being a leader but not a people leader. Ooh, I like that. How to overcome imposter syndrome. Okay, how to become a leader without the actual title, make your resume stand out. How and when to ease salary conversations, ask for a raise, transferring supervisor roles, procrastination, setting good examples. These are really good. Personal branding to be known. I love that one. Overcoming influence people to try to keep you down. Empowering my team through leadership, no management. I love that. That's kind of the topic of my whole second book. It won't be out till late 2026 though. So sorry, you kind of wait. But I might be doing, that's why I'm asking you, because maybe I'll be doing more webinars on that. Thank you, Shelby. I see your comment in the chat. Setting clear expectations with beginning projects initiatives. Female bosses that are only interested in promoting themselves don't share important. Okay. Negotiating pay. These are awesome, awesome, awesome ideas. Standing out and staying on top. We'll just get a couple more here, and this will stay up so you can keep answering, and I'll see the survey will stay live. So I'll keep seeing the answers as they come in. So even if I advance to the next slide, I'm not going to miss your answer. I definitely want your answer. And if you're watching this on replay, I want your answer. So I love it. And if the live doesn't work, you can always email me. All right. Feedback, standing out and staying on top. I love it. Influencing men and women alike, especially those that don't report to you and have other priorities. Yeah, Erin, this is a big thing. And somebody else had said this thing, giving productive feedback to superiors. I love it. All right. So let's close today. First and foremost, like, thank you for coming. I'm going to give away 2 books. And then if you want to stay, I'm going to be talking about my Clarity and Confidence Women's Leadership Program. This is a program, it's my flagship program that I run every spring in April and May. And so if you want to hear more about that, it's an online program. So I have folks from all over the world that come to this, which is really cool. I'll talk about that here in a second. But if you make sure we're connected on social media too, because if you're like me, maybe you think of all the questions you wish you'd have asked me today about 10 p.m. tonight. So just make sure we're connected on Instagram or LinkedIn. And I love getting messages with little wins or questions or whatever that might be. And okay, let's do some books. So I'm gonna give away 2 books. And so you need to go to the webinar chat, because the first person I see with the right answer, I know you all are like, the first person I see with the right answer is going to get the book. Okay, get the first book. So question number 1, what year was it when women could open bank accounts or get a loan in their own name? Okay, it was 1974. So I'll go get the 1974. Okay, Samantha Fulmer. Okay, a book is coming to you. So Samantha, I believe my business manager, Kristen, is on this. She's going to drop my email. It's info@Kelli Ray Thompson. You're going to send to me, Samantha. If you want a hardcover, I need the address I'm sending it to, or if you prefer the Kindle or the Audible, because my book is in hardcover, Kindle, and Audible. If you prefer one of the other formats, just email info@kellyraythompson.com and tell her what format you want. And if you want hardcover, I need your address. Okay, second question. Y'all ready? What year was it that women could take out a business loan in her own name? Oh, you were waiting for it. Like, one of you knew. One of you knew. Okay, so Lori, you're also going to email info@kellyraythompson.com, and you're going to tell me what format you want. If you want hardcover, I need your address. If you want Audible or Kindle or ebook, then you need to tell me that, and we'll make sure that that gets over to you. And if you do want Audible, just give us your Audible email address. I know sometimes it's different, and we'll make sure that the Audible gets over to you. So for those of you who have come, thank you so much. Make sure we're connected on social media. If you want to stay, and I wish you a happy International Women's Day. I hope you go out and you take your bravest next step. If you want to stay, I would love to talk with you about my Clarity and Confidence Women's Leadership Program. Again, this is the 6th year I've run this. It sells out every year. But I keep it small because intimacy is really important to me. So I do cap it at 20. We have 14 spots left. And this is my flagship program. It talks about a lot of the topics that we talked about today in my women's leadership program, or excuse me, in my book. And it's for new to mid-level leaders who want to get clear on what they stand for as a leader. They want to lead with their unique talents, overcome doubt, shift from doers to leaders, and advocate confidently so they can take brave next steps at work. And thank you, Tithi. Yes, I was so happy you were part of my past program. Thank you so much. And so, if you are thinking about, I am really working to advance myself as a leader, and maybe I wish I could lead with more confidence. I'm tired of feeling doubtful. I know I need to find my unique voice in the rooms where decisions are made. I'm ready to make impact. Maybe you're feeling like, I know I'm too in the weeds and I need to kind of delegate some of this stuff and really learn to rise up and own what's unique about me. It's probably a really good fit for you. So let's just talk about the agenda. So week 1, we talk about claiming our roles as confident leaders and how we can define what we stand for as a leader. Because if you don't know what you stand for, what will you settle for? And so we really spend a lot of time defining our leadership brand and our values so that we are showing up and moving closer to the type of leader we want to become. Week 2, I use the Enneagram in this course. So if you're Ennea curious or you use the Enneagram, we talk about how this helps you define your leadership strengths and give you more confidence as a leader. Week 3, we're talking about what are your unique talents as a leader? What sets you apart? What have you been born to do at work? And how can you use this at work to make a difference? Week 4, we talk about closing the confidence gap. We go really, really deep on, talking about doubt, talking about imposter feelings, talking about, how do we move forward while also feeling doubt? And I really go deep into a lot of the work that I use with my clients to help people show up and lead with more clarity and confidence. And I'm dropping the actual link to the program in the chat. And then we have a little break week. So just in case, you get a little behind in the homework, then we talk about leading more by doing less. This is one of my most popular topics because we want to talk about how do we shift our identities from doers to leaders? How do we get out of the weeds? How do we start delegating? How do we move closer to that strategic and influential leader that we're meant to become, whether you are leading people or not? Week 6, we talk about something that doesn't get talked about in a lot of leadership programs, and that's exactly why I talk about it. We talk about how to trust yourself, how to trust your intuition, how to decide with confidence. We spend a lot of time in giving tools and techniques, or I giving tools and techniques to stop second guessing. Stop polling everyone else. Stop, over ruminating and really trusting yourself so that you can make those clear and confident decisions that matter. Week 7, we're talking about my advocacy model. How do we show up and advocate to make an impact? And how do we make impact in the rooms where decisions are made? Not by following a script or specific advice. My advocacy model talks about how do you show up as you with your unique point of view in alignment with your values so that you can make the impact that you are meant to make and share your unique perspectives, pull other people off the pedestal and show up in those rooms as a clear and confident leader. And then week 8, we're wrapping it all together to get our bravest next steps and everything to get into action. This course is probably a little bit different than maybe some other leadership courses, again, that you've taken, and here's why. All of this material you will actually watch on videos, not during our sessions. Okay. So literally you can download it to your app. And if you're vacuuming, cleaning, grocery shopping, you'll listen to the module of the week just on your own. And then we come together every Thursday from April 3rd to May 29th, and we do group coaching. And so this is a really powerful experience because you're actually going to get true executive and leadership coaching from me. We give folks little 8-minute hot seats. I coach them through an issue at the time. Of course, this is all confidential. We all sign confidentiality agreements. And then the really cool thing is you'll start to notice that we all have the same problems. We all have a difficult manager. We all struggle with confidence. We all need to figure out how to speak up and say something or give hard feedback. And so even if you're not the one being coached, you're still going to get a lot of answers to all of your other work stuff and leadership stuff just by watching me coach other folks. And the cool thing is a lot of my clients say is, I actually got a lot of really good coaching questions that I can then use and ask my team. And so that's what makes it a little bit different. Our live sessions are all group coaching. We're coaching real life present issues, and all of the content you're able just to watch, on your own before you come to class. And so the price point on this is $9.99, or you can break it into 2 payments of $500. I will tell you that a good majority of my clients get this paid for by their employer. And so if you go to that website via this link, you can get a reimbursement letter that you can send to your employer and have your employer pay for it. I can even invoice your employer. If you are in a place where your employer is not going to pay for it, I do have a payment option so that you can make 2 payments. Because I know for me, I relied on my employer and corporate to fund a lot of my development. And I really wished I wouldn't. I really wished I wouldn't. I learned when I was an entrepreneur how important it was for me to fund my own development. So no, this is the only time of year that I offer this. I offer this in the spring. And then the course that I offer in the fall is called Advance from Doer to Leader. It's a shorter course. It's 4 weeks. But that one is very how to get out of the weeds and advance from doer to leader. We don't talk about this other stuff. So I wish I could offer it more, but nope, this is the one time a year I offer it, and I would love to have you. If you have to miss one of the classes, they are recorded. And I mean, I work in corporate. On Thursdays, it's 12 p.m. Central. So that would be 1 Eastern, 11 Mountain, 10 Pacific, or if you're international, you'll have to do that conversion. But I do record it because you know what? My clients are busy. They're corporate stuff, right? Their manager calls them into a meeting. And so if you have to miss a group coaching session or two, like you're good. The other cool thing is you'll get an online private community. And that one is just as powerful because every week you'll get little pieces of homework. I call it confidence building homework. And so then we post that in the group, and then everybody is in there talking about what they did. They're supporting one another, all those sorts of things. And so it's just really nice community feel that you get. And the cool thing is like so many of these, I was just talking to one of them, from last spring, like they still talk to each other. And that was just the number one reason why I created this is because, you know, when I was in corporate, I just felt so alone. I didn't have a network outside my company. And so when I went off on my own and I joined like a mastermind like this for being an entrepreneur, I was like, "Oh, this is what I was missing." Like there was women I could connect with across the country who could challenge me, help me think differently. They weren't mired in my own corporate junk. And that's what these women has found too, is they have this network of women now from all over the country that can give them different perspectives, or they can enable them for new opportunities, or, you know, help them see things in a different way. And so it just really helps expand your network of support and leadership across the organization. So I want to be respectful of your time. So if you have any questions about this, just send me a message on social media. You can email me at kellyraythompson.com. I'm Kelli with an I. Kristen could probably put that in the chat, and reach out. You'll also get a replay of this, and then you can even just reply to that email too. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I would love to have you. There are 14 spots left. I do cap enrollment because it is important to me to keep this intimate and tight, because that's where the magic happens, is in this tight-knit community of women leaders. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Happy International Women's Day. I hope that you choose to stop waiting to be picked and invest in yourself and enroll. But it's also great if you can ask your company to pay for this as well. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, thank you for taking the last hour with me. And I hope that I can talk to you again soon. Thanks, everyone.